At the moment, the Mazda 6 is being produced in 3 distinct variants, each of which is distinct from the others, but is still in the process of being created. These variants are now being utilized in the manufacturing process. The Mazda 6 was introduced to the general public for the very first time in the year 2002, beginning with the year 2002. In 2007, the public was introduced to the second generation of the Mazda 6, which was the first time the vehicle was shown to the public. The Mazda 6, which is now in the process of being manufactured, has seen the beginning of construction on its third successive version. In the year 2002, the first edition was made available to the general public for the very first time because it was published. Special accommodations have been made available in order to provide members of the general public who have come to visit with the opportunity to witness all 3 of these organizations participating in the event. These accommodations have been made available at no additional cost. The third generation, which was initially made available for purchase in the year 2012 and was subsequently introduced to the consumers, has finally been introduced by the company after they had been waiting for a substantial amount of time. Both of these events took place in the year 2012. At a certain point in time, after all of the relevant considerations had been taken into account, the third generation was made accessible to the general public. It is impossible for anything to come into existence unless it has been exposed to the cosmos. This is the only way a thing may come into existence. Specifically, this is due to the fact that it is not brought into being until each of these generations that came before it has been shown to the outside world. It was at precisely the moment that this particular milestone was reached that the culmination of all of the laborious efforts that these generations had put in throughout the course of their lives was finally achieving its objective. As soon as they arrived at this point, it was at this exact moment that they succeeded in bringing themselves to this particular posture. There is a possibility that a new version of the Mazda 6 may be manufactured in the not-too-distant future. This is something that is anticipated to happen. During the process of developing this projection, each and every one of the criteria that have been taken into consideration up until this point in time have been taken into consideration. This conclusion is based on the fact that this projection was created. This is the position that has been adopted because the corporation has not published any statements that are specifically geared for the general public in regard to the issue. This is the reason why this position has been chosen. This is the reason why things are the way they are in the current situation. This is the explanation for why things are the way that they are, taking into consideration the circumstances that currently exist under the circumstances. And research into their past model years, on the other hand, reveals that they have not made any improvements to their model since the year 2012, which indicates that we should definitely anticipate the arrival of a new model of this sedan in the not-too-distant future, or in the not-too-distant future. As a result of taking into consideration the current state of affairs, we need to be anticipating this event with a great deal of delight and anticipation in order to achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves. There is not the slightest amount of uncertainty in my mind regarding the fact that this is something that we need to be looking forward to with a sense of delight, and my mind is totally clear that this is something that we ought to be looking forward to. The Mazda 6 model that will be released in 2019 will, if anything, imply that the price of this car will be marginally higher than the price of the model that was introduced the year before or the year before that. This is because the Mazda 6 model will be presented in year 2019. On account of this particular reason, the Mazda 6 will be produced in a variant that is distinct from the one that is now on the market. When all of the information and facts that have been presented are taken into consideration, this is the conclusion that can be drawn from the information and facts that have been provided. It is predicted that the Mazda 6 would be made in the year 2019, which is the reason why the current scenario exists. As a result, the current condition is a consequence of this anticipation, which brought about the current scenario. There is an additional piece of evidence that lends credibility to the idea that is being discussed in this context, and that is the fact that it is anticipated that the Mazda 6 will be manufactured in the year 2019, which is something that ought to be taken into consideration. One issue that ought to be taken into consideration is this particular instance. It has been anticipated that this is something that will be taken into consideration at some time in the future, and this prediction is based on the forecasts that have been offered. There will be consideration given to this particular aspect of the situation. In particular, this is something that is anticipated to take place at some point in the future. Over the course of the previous year, the price range for each of the 9 distinct trim levels was between $37,000 and $50,000.